Hey folks, Jesse Bayer here, Abundant Living Ecuador, coming to you on a more casual manner today at my apartment here in Loja. This video is about the election in Ecuador, and I make it because obviously it's super pertinent. Today is what was it, 31st, I believe, of March, last day of March, yes, 31st. Election is on April 2nd on Sunday, today is Friday. So yeah, very pertinent issue right now. A lot at stake in this election, and I just wanted to give you guys some information on it because if you're subject to the whims of the international press and what you can find on the internet, you're probably getting a lot of sort of not great information and very slanted opinions. So this is real information. It's on the ground. It is opinion. Take it for what that means to you. But I wanted to put the information out there. We do get a lot of questions. There's a lot of people who are less interested in Ecuador, depending on who wins, or more interested depending on who wins. So here we go. First of all, quick history. Ecuador, prior to Rafael Correa taking power 10 years ago, lots of political and social turmoil. Ecuador has a long history of kicking out presidents through social, unrest, basically, which I think is pretty awesome. But we've had political stability, economic stability, and social stability under Correa, certainly for the last 10 years, and a lot of things I think really go in his camp. He checked the box on a lot of issues that were very good. Tons of infrastructure improvements, poverty down, crime down, super safe country now, standard of living up, so lots, stability. So lots of things, hospitals, schools, healthcare, etc. Lots of things you can say are really good. On the bad side of that, you've got sort of dictatorial type behavior. You've got, reining in of freedom of expression, freedom of the press, some pretty nasty stuff on that. You've got he's indigenous nonsense going on where he's going in with the military and the police and bulldozing homes and kicking people off their lands in order to allow drilling and exploitation of gold, mining and drilling in the Orient and the Amazon. Huge increase in taxes, huge increase in the state, huge increase in regulation, enormous increase in police presence. So definitely good and bad with his 10-year reign. He has his party, Alianza País, and himself are socialists, openly socialists. They call themselves 21st century socialists, whatever that means. The election is between his party, the candidate of his party, Lenin Moreno, who is formerly Correa's vice president, and Guillermo Lasso, who is private sector businessman, banker, etc. We're looking at very different directions should one or the other get elected. I think much more so than we are used to in elections, for example, in the states where I'm from. I think a lot of it is really window dressing. You may hate Donald Trump or you may hate Hillary Clinton, but in the end, on most issues, they're going to do basically the same thing outside of rhetoric. So, for example, we're going to have wars under either president. We're going to have high taxes and lots of debt under either president. Civil rights are going to get, or not civil rights, civil liberties are going to get trampled, under either president. The sort of police state is going to increase under either president. Neither is going to do anything about GMOs or freedoms in general. The state will increase under both presidents. So certainly there's some differences rhetorically, and there's a lot of cultural difference, which I think people get very caught up in, and there's rhetorical differences around abortion and gay rights and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it really is it's on the margins. We're not talking very if you think about the differences, under George Bush and Bill Clinton, two people who would be ideologically opposed, a lot of people would think, what did they really do that was that different? I would argue very little. So here, that's not the case. Here it's literally a socialist versus a businessman, and there are definitely some similarities as far as comparing that to like a situation in the States, for example. both candidates are not going to lower the role of the state as far as police or military. Certainly, I doubt either candidate is going to do anything very different on the mining rights and mining stuff. So there's certainly some similarities. Both will probably rob the country blind, like all politicians do. That being said, on the tax regulation side, there's really significant differences. Under Rafael Correa, we have and this is an example, we have a 75% capital gains tax on real estate, and there's a lot of caveats to that, and it's not quite as bad as that sounds. But imagine that number, 75%. It's insane, right? So, so that's just an example. There's thousands of them of the ways that the socialists here would continue, that stuff. Whereas Lasso, the businessman, he's got a list of 14 taxes he wants to cut. So he's much more friendly to entrepreneurship, to business owners, to freedom, at least economic freedom. And so I think that's really a significant difference between the two. It's very interesting time. We had the first election like a month ago, and now on April 2nd is the runoff because Moreno, who won, there was like 8 other candidates. Moreno, who won, didn't have enough the vote to avoid a runoff. So the polls are split. Basically, most of them show Moreno winning by a very small margin, but there's like 10 or 15% undecided. And voting is mandatory in Ecuador, for better or worse. So that 10 or 15% that's undecided is going to decide the election and or fraud because we had widespread reports of fraud, well documented, widely reported as well. Reports of fraud in the first round. So I won't get into all that; it's become too long the video. But so that's where we're at. We're also got scandals. Lenin Moreno, who was the former vice president of Correa, his vice president, vice president on the ticket, Jorge Glass, and who's also Rafael Correa's current vice president, is under being investigated for the Oberdech, if I'm saying that right, scandal, and Petro Ecuador. We're mired in scandal here as well. Lasso is Lasso is associated with the collapse of the Sucre, the dollarization, where basically a lot of Ecuadorians got robbed, rightly or wrongly. I've read a lot of stuff on both sides. I've talked to a lot of people with very different opinions. It sounds to me like most of it is nonsense that he actually had nothing to do with it, but a lot of people think that rightly or wrongly. Same thing for Jorge Glass. I can't say for sure that he was involved in those scandals, although he was definitely head of the part of the government that oversees all of the bribes that were taken. So oversees the aspect of government that took all those bribes in the Oberdech scandal. So yeah, that's sort of the background and sort of up to present day. I want to talk for a minute about the future and what it means should one or other of these candidates get elected for you. And when I say for you, if you're not interested in doing any sort of economic activity of any kind, this has less effect on you for sure. If you are interested in doing anything here, business, entrepreneurial related, then I think there's a lot on the line for you. So if Moreno gets elected, could things be okay? Absolutely, and may everything work pretty well like they basically did under Correa? Sure, but the risk is Venezuela. If you look at what's going on, and this administration is highly ideologically aligned, as well as verbally, they state it all the time, aligned with Venezuela, Cuba, and those sort of very repressive socialist regimes. So if you look at the first 10 years, for example, under Chavez, and the first 10 years under Correa, they're not all that different. People were talking about the economic miracle in Venezuela. Now it's a collapsed state, and there's no food, there's no medicine. People are literally starving. So the worst case scenario if Moreno wins is he shuts down economic activity to the point that like they did in Venezuela, that nobody's producing anything, and we have collapse. Best case scenarios, we sort of carry on as we are now. That being said, 2015, 2016, the chickens sort of came home to roost. Those are very bad economic years here in Ecuador, and what we've seen here is negative GDP, and we've seen capital flight. So money has left the country, investment is not coming, and that's as a result of tax and regulatory policies, and also just fear out of sort of this becoming a very repressive socialist regime. So that's what we're looking at there. Well, and also, it's worth mentioning, government here right now is huge. It accounts for as much as 44% of GDP under Correa. We're talking massive government, and that's ultimately that is unsustainable. So, and debt has been increased a lot under Correa. And also, I just want to mention, for those of you maybe coming from the political left, and I at some point in my life was very strongly from the political left. I have a political science degree from a liberal Northeast University. My whole family's very liberal. At one point, I shed a tear when Obama was elected for the first time. I was very liberal, and I'm not at all now. And I'm not right either. I'm definitely not conservative. I'm a voluntarist. I believe in voluntary exchange, and I believe that we all should be in charge of our own lives. I don't believe in government, but for those of you, from that sort of liberal, lefty, progressive, viewpoint, there's some things that Correa has done, and that will certainly continue under Moreno, that I think are sort of the opposite of what you want, and that's really civil liberties here have been very much trampled, and the what he's done, he's opened up the rainforest for drilling, which he promised he wouldn't, and he's also been horrible with indigenous. All three of those things, I'm very much in agreement with the left on, as far as that those those things should not happen. So I don't think he's really, if you're a lefty, I don't think he's your guy either. But and then so I think that's that gives you a little background. And then as far as Lasso, so if Lasso gets elected, the banker, the guy from the political right, he's got 14 taxes he's promised to cut. His campaign is based around letting people work, letting people function, letting people live, letting people start businesses, allowing investment. So from my perspective, if Lasso gets elected, we're talking about some period of years, at a minimum 3, but certainly could be extended beyond that. The debt I forgot to mention too. Correa saddled us with debt and loans, lots high interest loans from China backed by natural resources, and IMF loans, which he called the IMF basically the devil, which they are, and then went and took loans from them. So not your progressive savior, but Lasso's promised to cut 14 taxes, let people live, let people work, and that's very important to people. Correa's approval rating sits at this point in the low 30s. He's no longer a popular president. That being said, the politics here are very left for the most part. So, people are very collectivist, really. So, certainly Moreno could get elected. We'll see how much fraud there is, and we'll see what happens. I think it's somewhat of a toss-up. Well, the polls say it is. So, whether you can believe those or not is another story. But so I think if Lasso gets elected, we're talking economic boom for sure for some period of years. Capital flight, the capital that's fled Ecuador will come back, and that's wealthy Ecuadorians, who took their money and ran, smartly so, because they saw the writing on the wall, and also investment and investment, both like investors, small guys, a guy coming with some money to start something or invest in something, and big investment. Both of those have, Ecuador's been off the radar for international investment as a result of tax and regulatory policy. So, that's that. Both can, if you're a Julian Assange fan, which I'm not necessarily. I love his information, but I think it's probably a controlled opposition. But if you're a Julian Assange fan, both Correa both Lasso and Moreno have said they're not going to allow him to stay in the embassy there in London, I believe it is, right? The Ecuadorian Ecuadorian embassy in London. Yeah, so that's kind of where things stand. Hopefully one day humanity will wake up to the fact that they can govern themselves and they don't need to give their power away to would-be authority. But until then, I'll take baby steps. So I hope, I do personally support Lasso and hope that Lasso gets elected. Not because I think he's great, and not because I think he won't rob the country blind, as all politicians do. I think he will, but perhaps he'll let people, live their lives a little more freely than a socialist would. So that is my take. Sorry for all of you out there who have offended. I'm okay with any of your reactions, and yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Oh, by the way, check out our podcast. You can find it on our website, avecuador.com. Our podcast, we talk politics a lot. We talk Ecuador, obviously, all the time. But on the next show, right after the election, we'll dive into the results of that, in depth. It'll probably be a fun show. And, tune into that on a regular basis if you're interested in what's going on in Ecuador, because that's sort of the main topic for us. Our last week's show, we had actually a tax guy on who's an expert. He specializes in tax compliancy and tax returns for expats, as well as for people living or investing abroad, as well as expatriation, basically, renouncing citizenship. So people who are in the process of renouncing citizenship and becoming compliant to do so. So that was a really interesting show. That's it, guys. Have a great rest of your day or night or